everyone. It's John Hucker, president of the Swiss Finance and Technology Association. We're joining you again this week with an update during the corona crisis. My hair gets longer. I'm sorry for my state, but we understand soon we'll be getting back partially to normal and able to go back and get a haircut. So we look forward to that day and also getting back together physically with others to do business and exchange ideas. But in the meantime, we've heard how much the world is changing, about how virtual solutions and a more decentralized response is needed. And so I wanted to bring a highlight from one of the most unique parts of the Swiss fintech story, which is the Crypto Valley. I'm very lucky to be joined today by one of the real leaders of the community, Richard Olsen, the founder of Lika and a serial fintech entrepreneur, and also Ralph Kubli, who is the gatekeeper at the Crypto Valley Labs, which is really the hub for the Crypto Valley here in Switzerland. We're here again. You all know me, so I want to dive right into it. I thought I would give you the honor, Richard. Would you like to quickly just do a bit of a better job introducing yourself and your company, Lika?
First, thanks very much for organizing this event. Want to briefly explain what I've been doing. So I've been in this fintech world before it actually had the name of fintech. I've always been passionate about creating a financial system that's resilient and robust. I've done a first company named Olsen Associates, which built a real-time forecasting system, then branched out into Oanda, which became a market maker in foreign exchange, which was a big success, and have for the past 5 years been building Hucker. And Hucker is all about using blockchain to create a comprehensive offering of financial products, including an exchange for the retail.
Great. Thank you, Richard. Ralph, I wanted to give you a chance to have a similar introduction. Do you want to say a few words about yourself in Crypto Valley?
Sure, that'd be great. So, yeah, my name is Ralph Kubli. I have been in the enterprise software space really since 2014. Again, before that, in the very early days, I did code HTML, sort of like in the web 1.0 or 0.5 in the web 0.01 era, I would say. I spent most of my career, however, in large companies and in chemicals, automotive, and aerospace. Today, I am at CVVC. So CVVC is one of the venture capital firms in Switzerland that only focuses on blockchain. We have a few activities. One is obviously we have the investing activity. We run an incubation program for early stage seed startups, and we're running a co-working space called Crypto Valley Labs, CV Labs, in Zug, which is kind of which is what we call the heart of the Crypto Valley. However, I'd like to point out that for us, the Crypto Valley really is Switzerland and Liechtenstein, and not just Zug or Zurich.
Great. Well, thank you, Ralph. Helpful to give context. I was wondering, though, can you tell us, I mean, you're at the middle of it all. What's going on now with the corona crisis? Is the Crypto Valley the same as it's always been, or how do things look in the moment?
So I think it's really important to distinguish how different startups experience this crisis, right? So nothing really has changed with respect to the attractiveness of Switzerland for blockchain companies, a regulatory framework. People still want to come to Switzerland. Important projects can still raise money, but of course, depending on where you stand in terms of your stage as a startup, you experience this crisis differently. So for more mature startups that have raised money, that have staff, that are targeting applications now and customers, they are having a hard time developing relationships with customers or advancing, or acquiring clients in this crisis, right? Because their counterparties within organizations and companies, they're just not ready to talk about business and advancing projects right now. So that's a challenge. These later stage startups or more mature startups also probably have to think about how long the money is going to last, right? So if you had a runway of 6 to 9 months, you probably need to think about that this runway should now be, the money that you have should last you 15 to 18 months, because you may not be able to raise money in the short period. So that's for the later stage and more mature startups. For the early stage startups, of course, it's a really tough time, because maybe you've raised a little bit of money, or you didn't raise that much money, you use some of your own money, you bootstrap personal money, and the investors are pretty much gone for the moment. So raising money now, if you don't have any traction and any prior investors, is really tough. So, and we see this quite significantly with some of our own portfolio companies that are rather early. And of course, it mirrors, what happens in the startup world overall. This is not specific to blockchain. So, and at the same time, I would continue to say that it's important to notice that, protocol layers or companies like Likke, etc., they are here to stay. Bitcoin Swiss, the two banks that exist, these companies are all here to stay. So I don't really consider it, in danger, the crypto valley to be in danger. However, these are tough times depending on where you stand in the cycle of the, of your company.
Interesting, and I guess we're all kind of holding our breath a bit here to see how it continues to evolve. But Richard, you're an entrepreneur. You're in the middle of this all. Are you seeing the same thing from your side as you're hearing described here, or how do you see the crisis evolving from Likke?
So, like two things. On the one hand, we have Switzerland and our preferred way of life. And the other thing is what has been reality around the globe for many people always. Life is just tough. And I think, especially in Switzerland, we had a kind of fairy tale world where on the one hand, there was never really good funding for definitely mid-sized and even smaller startups. It had been improving a bit, but it's relative to other countries, it has always been quite laid back. So now the economic impact of the coronavirus is huge. And we have only seen the first impact, but there's much more to come. But now, at least for people in this space, this is the biggest opportunity which we've ever seen, because the world at large will have to fast forward into everything that modern fintech, blockchain, tokenization offers. So it's a great opportunity. And what I think we have to understand like two things. One is, let's work together. I mean, how many of the startups say, I'll conquer the world? No, let's conquer the world together. Let's be intelligent how we can collaborate. And then, to take your term, you say you need 12, 15 months runway. In the US, never a company had runway for so many months. Because why? You only have to get one investor or two. And that's a very different thing to running a statistical game where you hope to have n investors. So I think work together and be very tactical and at the same time strategic.
Very, very wise and insightful insights there, Richard. Thank you. Ralph, you were talking a lot about how companies are struggling to raise funding. Do you think there is enough market acceptance yet for that funding to come through? Do you think these business models have been proven, that the regulation is clear? Do you think that these are investable companies that are ready to be funding, and it's a question of connecting the dots, or is there a deeper challenge in raising funding right now?
Look, so it's clear, Richard said it. I mean, obviously in Switzerland, we were in a privileged situation, in terms of the overall situation, right? The economic situation. However, for startups, it was always tough. What we see is that, many people that come here to establish, entrepreneurs that come to Switzerland to establish their blockchain-based, companies come here because of the regulatory framework. That doesn't go away. Many of these companies are investable. They've built serious technology. The question now is, as Richard said, it's an opportunity because a lot of innovation and a lot of innovative solutions have been built. They're ready to be used. Now we have to find, the use cases are clear. So just imagine about, identity, confirmation of who you are in these remote, now that we all have to be remote, right? So, making sure that certain information hasn't been changed, who has looked at the document last, all these questions that this technology that we're talking about, blockchain and DLT, will contribute foundational solutions for. Some of these use cases are there, and some of these applications have been built. So now it is a question of how can we translate that into action in today's world? You could also think about how can the infrastructure of the financial system be improved in order to handle such crises, right? So how do you get money to people in an efficient way? How do you keep track of credits? How do you keep track of this liquidity that comes into the market? How can you make good borrowers how can you enable good borrowers that still have good cash flow to benefit from credit facilities that exist? All these questions are now solved still in legacy environments, which are really inefficient and quite costly.
But there is one issue, I think, which we're facing in Switzerland is for each of the issues that you have mentioned, there is now basically one small startup in Switzerland which tries to address that issue, or even several trying to each individually. And if you would make a kind of a mind map of the tasks which you have to fulfill to be able to achieve those products, you would see 80% or even 90% overlap. So basically we should just work together, even create packages of products, services, also be innovative in how we market. So that is not being explored, at least for me.
Yeah, I would agree, Richard. And of course, that's the benefit of having a mature venture environment, right? Not just venture capitalists, but a more mature venture environment where this happens with more ease, right? Which is what we would be used to in a Silicon Valley or other clusters of the world where this happens a bit easier and quicker.
But why not here?
No, that doesn't mean that we cannot do it.
So let's do it. So I find...
Well, we here at the FinTech Association, and I know also at Crypto Valley Labs, are big believers in the concept of ecosystem. And one of the main thrusts that we bring all those stakeholders together to work on is what we call advocacy, so changing regulation and policy. I think, Richard, you've mentioned a few ideas along those lines. There has been a lot of progress in the DLT space in Switzerland, and it really is considered a global leader. But what more do you think could be done when it comes to regulation and policy around the crypto space?
I mean, I think first we have a big understanding problem that, and I think this has to be addressed now, especially with the coronavirus and its economic impact. If we want to as a society, stomach the body blow of the coronavirus and its outfall on the economy, we have to fast forward how the financial system works. There is no choice. It has to be done, not in 6 months or a year, but really today. And I find we have to change the urgency of our debate. So much of what is said, wouldn't it be nice to have this a little better? Wouldn't that be nice to have a little this faster? It's not about niceness. It's essential. And the sense of urgency has not been communicated because I think at heart, we haven't had this fighting spirit. So I'm just, in favor of just go full blow in and do it.
Well, it would seem that the crisis is the perfect opportunity to really push ahead with crypto. Before I ask you each for some last words, Ralph, do you want to share your perspective? Is the crisis the right time for crypto to be coming into the mainstream and really providing solutions, or does it need a bit more time to mature, more investment? What are your last words on regulatory and policy topics?
So when I spoke to bankers and people in the legacy financial system, and we introduced them to the potential and the opportunity that this technology presents, right? I always framed this as a positive opportunity, right? We have the chance to benefit from the cluster and the knowledge that we have in Switzerland to be, as I refer it, build the future of capital markets. This is a unique opportunity that Switzerland has. That's how I framed it before the crisis. And now when I take Richard's cue, I would say this is without alternative. And we should better start now and not just do small experiments, each on our own, and think about settlement systems and see how the new banks that are focusing on crypto are going to do in 2 to 3 years. It's a matter of urgency. If we don't do it now, it will as Richard said, basically eliminate the opportunity to deal with this crisis efficiently or in better ways. And second, I still think this is true, if we don't engage with higher urgency, Switzerland will become not relevant in the future structure of capital markets and financial services, and this needs to be avoided.
Great, thank you, Ralph. Yeah, it's a theme that we see over and over again is Switzerland works extremely well, and the consensus, very democratic model works extremely well during stable times, but the world sure has changed a lot very quickly. So we echo your thoughts, and we'll share your message in everything that we do around the corona crisis. We're getting kind of close to the YouTube ideal length, so I want to start to tie things up here. We've talked about the crisis. We all know that crypto is a big evolving story. We'll touch back up with you later this year, but are there any last words or calls to action you want to share? Ralph, I'll leave you first. Anything you want to share with the audience today?
Yes, I mean, specifically on the crisis, my point here is that the technical infrastructure is ready to, for example, implement track and trace, which we need to get out of this crisis. However, it needs to be open source, public, everything available to the world in order to avoid Big Brother is watching you solutions which we can see are being implemented in Asia. And here, as Switzerland and possibly Europe, we have a role to play and an obligation to bring this to life.
And Richard, as the entrepreneur at the table, or the true entrepreneur at the table, last words go to you. What would you like everybody to keep in mind in the week ahead?
In the week ahead, now I'll say something really provocative. Let's move beyond the name crypto. I think it is the wrong branding name, if you think about it. Because crypto means it's something impenetrable, kind of hostile. If we want to make it understandable for the man in the street, it has to be something for him to embrace. So let's use words which are positive, which give him hope, and not something which is very abstract. So it's a really marketing
Do you have any
message.
suggestions, Richard? What's the word we should use instead of crypto?
You know, kind of fintech, blockchain, just kind of securitized financial product, make them directly available. So for me, tokens, vouchers, something which is understandable for the man in the street. Because so far, globally, you only have 40 million people who have wallets in this space. But we're talking of a global society with roughly 5 billion grown-up people. So that's our audience, and we should speak to them.
Great. Well, I think you know that we're a big believer in the term fintech, and the big message there is that what we see is the coming together of technology with the old world industry of financial services. And we really believe that that's a great starting point to play a role in the digital economy. Finance and technology connect everything together. And as we've seen time and time again, fundamentally with what we call the crypto valley, Switzerland is a great place. It's neutral, it's reliable, it's extremely modern and innovative. So thank you for being part of the discussion. We look forward to seeing how this decentralized, innovative way of building the digital economy and financial services evolve. Thank you again, Richard, for your insights and your perspective. We'll share your views. And Ralph, looking forward to joining you once this is all over at the Crypto Valley Labs and hearing what's new in your part of the world.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for having me.
Everyone,
Great.
enjoy
Thank
the
you both.
weekend.